What's going on, Military Cashflow family? And we're back with another episode. Today, we're talking about our best times in the military versus our worst times in the military. All right, so we're gonna go a little bit. We're gonna try to keep it not as somber or and talk about many dark times, but we're gonna lay it out there for you so you guys could either agree with us or if you just now thinking about joining the military, you can start thinking about these things. But Dan, go ahead, man, kick it off.
All right, man. Best time in the military. So I've had a lot of great times. I've been in a lot of great places, met a lot of great people, right? But one of the best times from actually this hat right now, this hat I actually got from Japan. We got to go to Japan for like 2 weeks during for some training event. So I don't know, it's pretty cool. But my best memory is an exercise. It was a defensive live fire exercise. And this is when I was a finance officer. So the reason why it was so cool is because I got to essentially train my guys and then see them, get excited and then actually execute these things. So for those who are in, those of you don't know, I started off infantry. I was, light PL, heavy PL, did some XO time, did some real cool things as an infantry officer. And then when I switched to finance, it was kind of a hard transition because we're a support role and there's not a lot of, I guess, field experience. I'll put it that way. Not a lot of like field type experience. So my favorite time was the defensive live fire exercise where we went down to a range. We like marched down to a range. We were there for like a week, and we had a mortar platoon with us. And we were basically going through our medal tasks, which was, defending your position, right? So defensive live fire, right? DLFX. And the cool thing was because I was an infantry officer, that I did a lot of the helping with not just planning it, but actually like showing, train the trainer, right? Teaching my NCOs, this is how you actually operate this weapon system the correct way. This is, your sectors of fire. This is how you do certain things and little other field crafts that go along with it, right? That they never really experienced being in a support role, where obviously I had been out to the field countless times and seeing and learning from my NCOs, right? So it was really the reason why it was my favorite time is literally because just seeing the excitement on their faces from learning, like, if you're in the support role, you don't really get to do a lot of, infantry stuff, or you don't get to do a lot of like hua stuff. So them getting the opportunity to actually do it and being extremely excited about it and seeing them execute and be very proud of like walking off the field, like, hey man, I just did that. And, this is awesome. This is such a great event. They're sharing their pictures, they're doing all this other stuff. I don't know, to me, that was just really, really fulfilling, being able to like kind of teach something, then see someone actually execute it and be extremely, extremely excited about it and proud. I'm proud about what they did. And I've had some great times in the infantry. I got to my company commander was down, and as an XO, I got to basically lead a company on a couple of exercises. It was pretty dope. But I would say, being finance, they were way more excited about it, and because this is not something that they get to do, right? Just the whole entire training up process was extremely fulfilling to me, just seeing that, them do that and see, teach my NCO something, and then they actually go and teach their soldiers how to do it. And I don't know, man, it was just really cool. It's kind of like how, we teach this real estate stuff, and then to see someone actually go out and do it and be successful at it, it's very, very similar. That's extremely fulfilling. So to me, that was the best memory. How about you, Mike?
Yeah. I love that, man, because it is always something we talk about that all the time too. Like seeing the light bulb click, like that is just a time of like, now I'm on fire. Now I'm inspired by your, success or your excitement. So that's awesome, man. So for me, there's a lot of good times, man. There's a lot of good times. I'm gonna have to give an honorable mention to being able to travel as much as we did in the military, because growing up as a kid, I had actually never left the state of Texas until I joined the military. I've never even got on a plane until I joined the military. They flew my ass out to boot camp, right? And then now I've been to several different countries and stuff. So that's an honorable mention. But for me, what I'll say is my best time was, again, being that young kid from Texas, never did anything. And I mentioned this story before, but my first year in, I was an 88 Mike, And that summer, so only in for a couple of months, that summer I had the opportunity to go to airborne and air assault school. And being a nervous guy is like, I don't want to mess up because they always talk about the kick out rate and the drop rate and all this other stuff. But I've never flown before. So getting on that first helicopter and just like hanging over the edge, that just put me in an entirely new world of like, what the hell is even possible? Like, what is it? How am I? Because in the helicopter, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the helicopters, the doors are typically open. We're sitting on the edge and our feet are hanging off. But you're wondering, like, when they're banking and you're looking down at the ground, it's like, how am I not falling out? It's like, what the fuck? And I'm grabbing on everybody's shit. I'm moving them back. Like it's scary, right? But and then going into air assault and doing something very similar. At that point in time in my life, that's when my eyes opened to like the world of possibilities. I was always in like this bottle or in this box growing up because I just did not know. And then after that, man, the doors opened, was able to go active duty, able to start my own businesses and everything because now my mind truly saw like, oh, yeah, I'm this. And I think I was like 8. I was about to turn 19 is when I joined the military. So at that point in time, I'm thinking like, oh, I got this. I'm grown. I'm a grown man. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, I know this. And then I realized I don't know shit. I don't know nothing. So yeah, that was probably the best time.
They say air assault school is the toughest 10 days in the Army, right? And I specifically remember like my time at air assault school. I'm curious for you because you said you had just joined, right? Brand new to it. I'm assuming at that time you didn't really know like military customs, didn't know anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you? What was air assault school in particular like for you? Was it as tough as you thought it would be?
No, not as tough as I thought it would be. The reason why is because I was actually in great shape back then. I was very fit. So the physicality part wasn't an issue. For me, in my mind, I put so much stress on myself because I heard how hard the course is. So like I would study and study, we had to do the air assault test and all that. I studied and all the knots because I never repelled and everything. So all that was new to me. So I'd be staying up at night, just like going over this stuff. And honestly, if you go in there physically fit, and have just a baseline knowledge, like if you had studied before you went somehow, it would have been fairly simple for people to pass. But for me, that was actually my first school ever in the Army. So there was a lot around it. There was a lot of like.
What year did you go and where'd you go to?
I think it was 29. Oh, not 2019. I was 19. Sorry, give me a second. 2009. Okay. 2009. And I went to a place in Texas out of San Antonio because it was a National Guard event for air assault. Yep, that's right. Yeah. Oh, you made me put on back the rewind.
The reason I asked that because like so I was a cadet. I went in 2010 as a cadet, right? And it was the first military school I ever went to. I started the ROTC program in spring of I think it was like spring of like 2010. I think so. Somewhere around there. I started and then they were just like, hey, you look physically fit enough, man. You can go to air assault school. I was like, what's air assault school? Never put a ruck on my day in my life, bro. Like, like what's that? Oh yeah, it'll be all right. You'll be good. You know what I mean? Like and literally I go to the school and I'm like, yo, what is what? I had no idea. Like I had no idea about anything. I did not prepare for this. It was just kind of like a 3-week thing. Like, hey, we have this slot for air assault school. I think you'd be all right for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I go to it and I'm just getting broke the fuck off, dude. Like, because I didn't prepare for this. Like, I didn't know anything about what I was getting into. And I never put a ruck on. Like, I actually assembled my ruck. I went with another cadet and he helped assemble my ruck. I wore brand new boots on the 12 mile. This is I didn't know anything. Didn't know anything. So I know we kind of went off on out into left field, but I just thought that was awesome. Like, you said you started, that was your first military school. So my first military school as well. Obviously I got through it, but man, to me, that sucked more than Ranger school because I didn't know anything. And I did 12-mile ruck. That was my first ever 12-mile ruck march. Like,
and that's a good point because up to that point, I just had basic AIT and some fucking, drills here and there. So I didn't really know too well, but that was the first time that I experienced the Army 12 miler with the 3 hour time standard. Like that was never mentioned to me before in anywhere because 88 mics aren't really doing that. I mean, well, not in the guard anyway. Let me put it that way. So yeah, to that point, that was tough. That was very tough. Matter of fact, I remember. That's a good point because even though I was physically fit, I remember I was like, oh, I wanted to stop. A buddy of mine who went with me was also physically fit. He caved out at like mile 8, and then I remember getting all the way up to the finish, and it's only like whatever. You can see the finish line, so maybe 100 meters or whatever, 100 yards. And there's a dude in front of me, and he was trying out for SF guard. I gotta demonstrate this. This boy, this boy got up to the top, man, and he was right there. He said, like he was
up there doing the stanky leg, man.
Boy, like he was dunking, and then he just fell out, man. And I remember I was so scared. As I was running past him, I was like, "Did he die?" And I was like, "Oh, I do remember that, man. Good times, man."
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's change the subject. Although we covered the best, which is like the highlight. What was some of the worst times for you, man?
Yeah, the singular worst time for me was I think JRTC, I'm gonna say 2016 time frame, because it was like a week after my second child was born, right? And I'm not even gonna lie, man, I had zero motivation to go to this, as a PL. I had like zero motivation to go to this. Personal. Now, like obviously I didn't show that, to my guys and things, but man, like, just seeing my second child get born and then having to go away for like a month and some change. That's when it like, yeah, a lot of that just kind of hit me. I was like, man, there's some times where you're sleeping, when you're kind of like, it's bed down, especially during like the in processing part. I can't remember what it's called, man. Like when you're kind of in processing in the JRTC, right? When there's actually a lot of downtime, like for the first like week when you're getting all the pre-po equipment, all the pre-positioned stock, like all your other stuff. It's there's a lot of downtime in there, and that was just sucky for me. Like just sitting there, like, man, I don't got my phone because they they take away everybody's phone. I don't got my phone. I don't have any way to like really talk to. I don't got no pictures, and my kid was literally just born like a week and a half ago. So to me, that was the worst time. That experience itself, like actually going through it, and once I got into it and I wasn't really thinking about anything else, just thinking about like the mission at hand, it was cool. I didn't mind it at all. But that will probably forever be like one of the worst times in the military for me, just because like my mental state was not there. And that was one of the times I can say like, hey, I really just didn't want to be there, dude. Like if there was a quit button, I probably would have touched it like at some point there. And it's not even like JRTC's hard. It was literally just because, man, my wife's at home. She was in law school too, right? At that time, she was in law school, just had our second child, and she was there by herself, like trying to do it. And like me as the provider, as a male in the household, I just felt a certain type of way. And I really didn't like it. So that was my worst time. What about you?
Yeah, that's fair, man. That's absolutely fair. So I'll pre-note this with the fact that there's a lot of dark times in the military, but like we said, we're not going to really try to touch on them. If you guys do want to see a video, not necessarily about the dark times, but about some of the hardest mental things, just leave it down in the comments below and we can create a whole new video about that. But one of the things that I saw consistently across the board that I consider one of the worst things or attributes or whatever that the military had was the fact that when leadership would reward individuals in the eyes of what the leadership thought was a good reward. And I'll give you an example. Similar to your story, man, a good friend of mine, he had his wife at home. He was sending money back home. He was from another country. So he was the provider for a lot. And then he already had some kids, and he had another brand new baby born while he was at a course with me. right? And so the baby was born. He's like, man, I just want to go home, man. I just want to, see my baby. We both completed the course, not a big deal. We get back. The fact that he performed a lot better than I did, the leadership said, you know what, man? You did so well. I'm going to send you out again. Here you go. You leave in like 30 days. You go into another course. Now, in the eyes of the leadership, he's like, hey, man, if you get more schools, you get more leadership opportunities, you get more opportunities to promote faster, you got a great career. All he wanted to do was go home. He wanted like 3 months off, just like your point. But that's just one example, but that happened time and time again, right? Where like people would get, or for example, maybe people would get awarded in public. Like, hey, everybody gather around. We're about to give them an award. But sometimes the soldier doesn't like that. Maybe they don't want to be publicly recognized. They'd rather do a handshake. Maybe they have a lot of anxiety and stuff, right? So it's hard, especially when you know the person, especially when you know the person and what they want. It's hard to see them be uncomfortable, but also being uncomfortable accepting whatever's going on, but also being uncomfortable being able to speak to the leadership about it. And so I'd probably say that that's one of the worst things that I saw consistently across the military.
Yeah. I definitely understand that piece, especially the rewarding piece, and also kind of to that point as well. Oftentimes, leadership, for soldiers that do a really good job, sometimes the reward is, hey, we're going to keep depending on you to do more and more and more
Right.
and more.
Right.
While the crappy one, while the crappy guy that can't be depended on, exactly, as you just skates, right? So I immediately thought that's where you were going at first, right?
That happened to me too. That happened to me too.
That
But I
happens a
feel
lot
like those situations, because I remember very specifically, we was in Afghanistan and I was knocking out a lot of stuff because I was just like hungry to do more, and I didn't like sitting around. One of a couple of them, they were playing video games. Yep, even SF played video games on their downtime. And while I was out actively doing something, the team sergeant came out and he said, hey, Mike, after this, I want you to go ahead and knock out this. And hey, can you do this too? And I was like, and I was doing everything up to that point. But at that point, I was like, Sergeant, I could. But what about those guys in there? He looked up, he was like, you damn right. And he went back inside. So it's like at a certain point, you gotta like stand your ground, you know what I mean? But no, you're right on the money with that one too, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even guilty with that sometimes too. Like sometimes, like, man, I got 5 guys right here, and I know 4 of them I probably can't depend on. But but you just have. But like sometimes if there's a timeline, there's a time crunch. It's like, damn, like you don't really have. I'm not gonna say you don't have a choice, but I will say I've been guilty of that too, but I'm cognizant of it, very, very cognizant of it. And I try as hard as I can not to do that, man. But that's definitely a thing right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
So those are our best and worst times, our best and worst moments in the military. What are your best and I'm curious to hear, what are your best and worst moments, right? So enter those down below, into those comments down below. I'm just curious what the collective thinks as well. That also honestly helps me as a leader, because I'm going to look at those and be like, okay, noted. Just like we talked about, being cognizant of rewarding good work with more work, right? So
Right.
You don't know until someone actually speaks it. So leave those comments down below, Mike.
Yeah, man. Just go out there, and if you guys are enjoying it, focus on the things you do enjoy, the things that you don't enjoy. Have those open conversations with your leadership, because I almost guarantee you, I understand not all leadership is the same, but I almost guarantee you that you'll be able to find some sort of mutual ground. So yeah, leave those things below, man, and we'll go from there.
All right. With that said, this is Dan Wynn
And Mike Glassby
signing off.